There is a topic that we've been focusing on Sidebar. It's the Ruby Franke case. Has everybody been following it? Yes. Would you like us to talk a little bit about Ruby Franke? Because we've been focusing on it for the last 3 weeks.
All right. The audience has spoken.
All right. Angenette, take it away.
Yeah, Ruby Franke is a woman who was a YouTuber. She ran a channel on YouTube called 8 Passengers, and really it was almost a reality show for the lives of her husband, Kevin, and her and their 6 children. Late last month, we got word, as you all did, that she had been arrested and charged with 6 counts of child abuse, along with a woman named Jody Hildebrandt, who is a licensed therapist and runs a website and a business called Connections Classroom. And she claims to, help people with their problems, to kind of recognize their problems and work through these with therapy. And it's really a really disturbing and horrifying case. One of Ruby Franke's children, a 12-year-old boy, escaped through a window in the home of Jody Hildebrandt in Ivins, Utah, goes over to a neighbor's home and knocks on the door and says, I need help. I need food. I need water. He's emaciated. He's got duct tape wrapped around his wrists and ankles. He has some wounds and some cuts. They call 911. The police show up. They find another child in the home. And it appears, from everything we're learning through search warrant returns and things like that, the children have told Jody Hildebrandt, at least, that the 12-year-old was being tied up and restrained with rope and different things. And we don't know why. Most recently, we got a hold of some court documents that said that there was a mixture of cayenne pepper and honey found in the home that would be used to dress some of these wounds. And there are so many questions surrounding this. First of all, people who are, they're professing to be very religious, yet treating children very poorly and very badly. So it's very disturbing. And in particular, it's disturbing because they've been so public about their lives. And there were so many concerns voiced for years by people, neighbors, and others saying, we're really concerned for these children and the parenting that's going on here. The oldest daughter, Sherry, she's at Brigham Young University attending school there. She was elated once this arrest came because she had been telling her aunts apparently for years that something just wasn't right. So, Joe, one of the things that I find so disturbing about this is the fact that they're so public. And it seems that if Jody Hildebrandt was indeed abusing these children and doing some type of therapy, whatever that, what kind of therapy that is, I never heard of, tying children up, why? And how was she able to get away with it for so long? Because she's running a business that she's charging $4,000 a month for therapy. How do you work this case? How do you start?
Yeah, I guess there's like a fine line between the couch and the chair, so to speak, in regards to some of these situations you're dealing with. Kids specifically are tough for investigators, especially when mom is being charged with something. But yeah, this whole outward persona and then doing stuff on the backside, you're talking about some deep level psychological issues here. Mm-hmm. I'm no doctor, but you don't need to be a doctor to figure that one out. The issue that comes down to is investigators have a lot of video evidence to consult with, see if there's anybody shows up in the background, if they mention anything, if they do something. I don't know about you, but, back in the day, parents were like wooden spoons and that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. But
I never got the wooden spoon. I was never, my mom was not a wooden spoon kind of person, but, it's shocking, though, that there's something going on there that we can't quite put our fingers on. But they were living their lives on YouTube and Instagram. And Jesse, it's really stunning that so many people were concerned about this for so long.
Yes, but I think what also we have to acknowledge is the hero that this 12-year-old boy is. Because if you think about it, a lot of times in these abuse cases, the children don't realize they're being abused. They don't realize they're victims. And what I found fascinating here is you have a 12-year-old who allegedly ran out of that house, went to a neighbor. That 911 phone call from the neighbor is horrifying. When police arrive, and we just learned this in a recent court documents, that the 12-year-old said to police that it was Jody who tied him up. The 10-year-old girl, his sister, was apparently reluctant to speak to law enforcement. And so for me, it seems now law enforcement is in a very tough position to try to get information out of these children who are not only the victims, but the prime witnesses to what happened.
It is extremely difficult to talk to kids and get information out of them. And for instance, you know, in large departments like New York City and elsewhere, they have a unit within a unit to do just this. So we used to have the sex crimes unit, where they renamed it now. But then they have the unit for children. So you had different investigators that are trained specifically on how to talk to kids. You know, it's not like, hey, would you like to have a hamburger for dinner? I mean, this is they have to get these kids in a place where they are willing to talk. Remember, when the parent, especially mom, is the potential, one of the potential perps or suspects in one of these things. Think about trying to get a 10-year-old to turn on their parents, right? It's right. Even when they've been wronged, it's, we see this even as adults in domestic violence cases. Take 10 or 15 years off and put it in a 10-year-old, and this is nearly impossible to get.
Jesse, I know that you spoke with the attorney for Kevin Franke, who is Ruby Franke's husband. And one of the most interesting things about that conversation, I thought, was the fact that Kevin Franke, who was part of this YouTube channel, he was separated from his wife for 14 months. He's claiming he didn't know anything about this abuse.
That was a very shocking interview. He said things that he hadn't said before, that Ruby Franke had called him, Ruby Franke had called Kevin, seemingly knowing the police were about to come and she wanted him to take care of the kids. But apparently Kevin made an agreement with his wife to not see the kids, that she thought it would be best for him not to be there. And he had no idea about what was going on over the past 13 months, which again, he hasn't been charged. He hasn't been implicated. People have seen him in the videos in the past and questioned his conduct, but that was a very odd turn of events about what role he has or what he might have known about the abuse.
Yeah, and also probably it comes with that as advice to counsel. This is what I'm going to be doing and saying, too, right? So once lawyers are involved, and especially in the criminal cases, as well as I do, who's going to get the best deal, who's going to talk forward. That's generally how this thing happens. But husband and wife, they got that whole privilege stuff, too, that goes on. But, when it comes to the criminality of it, if there is something criminal, they're going to roll over on each other.
Just one thing that I think is interesting in the timeline with all of this, with this Ruby Franke case, it seems to line up with Ruby and Kevin separate 14 months ago. It's around the same time that the videos on the 8 Passengers channel stop being uploaded. And then it seems that, to me at least, from our research into this case, that Ruby Franke really kind of goes all in with Jodi Hildebrandt on this Connections Classroom, this counseling business. And she's listed on there as kind of a therapist herself. And they're posting videos on Instagram talking about a host of topics. So do you think that we're going to find out, Joe, that maybe this Ruby thought she was doing something for her children, because it seemed she was very concerned about them doing the right things, making the right decisions. It seemed that she was very concerned about them doing things that fell in line with maybe certain religious beliefs and things like that. Do you think we're going to find that maybe she became just too wrapped up in this business?
I think that's like the argument that's going to be made for sure. If they find the level of criminality in her part, for sure, I think that's going to be her excuse, her reasoning for it. But I think that always the court of public opinion is far worse than anything else. But yeah, she started it, ended something, and started something else. The husband's out of the picture. There's a whole bunch of things that are going on. And listen, just because whether it went on YouTube, right? If it wasn't live, then they have footage that probably on phones or other types of things, and maybe that could play some role into it. Maybe some chatter that they're talking about, an unguarded moment.
Well, I mean, the police said in the documents that she really can't escape that she didn't know what was happening to the kids, because she filmed the video 2 days before at Jodi's house, and that was a significant aspect. I think it's going to be problematic for a defense attorney.